What up, LGBT cuties? You might remember for Pride last year I made these gold and rainbow dice that I was, well, proud of. And the year before that, I made these synthy transgender stained glass dice. Also very proud of those. And I had this new idea to do a 7-color dirty pour with a silicone cup that has 7 inserts or pour spouts on it. Well, as most things, your dreams have to be tempered by what you actually receive in the mail. I ordered 7, but I only got one with 5 in it. So I decided to change up my idea and go with another trans flag this year because I thought of a cool way to do it. I've got this blue, silver, and pink to represent the trans colors, and then I thought, wouldn't it be cooler if I outlined them in black so that they stood out and you could see each color separately? I also thought about using this interstellar color as the outline, but I thought it wouldn't stand out compared to the silver or white color. Let's go ahead and mix up some resin. Bear with me, by the way, on this black outline. I'm not trying to mess with anybody's flags that they're proud of, but I do think we can get some really cool colors going here. So I mix up my resin. It's a 1-to-1 by volume mixture of resin, so I can just kind of eyeball it, and it's pretty darn close. I mix it up for about 5 minutes or until my hands are sore. It should go from this cloudy color to completely clear with no streaks as you move your mixing utensil through it. I'm mixing up quite a lot of resin here because I'm going to separate it out to separate each of the colors so that we can fill them up in the spouts of that silicone cup. The main color that I'm going to use for the outside is this zero gravity. I chose it because it has little specks of other bits of color in it, so it kind of looks like the night sky. The thing I'm going for here with these dice is I kind of want the colors of the trans flag to look like a beam of light going through a dark sky. Very Pink Floyd t-shirt-y, if you can imagine that. I mix up the pink, I mix up the silver. The silver didn't end up looking as white as I would have liked it to as I was mixing it in, and so I do decide that I'm going to add a little bit of this bold titanium white color from Pro Acrylic. It's got really dense pigments, and so adding it will add a lot more white to this silver, and it'll turn into a pearl white rather than just a silver, which is what I was going for. I know that the flag is normally very pastel in its colors, but we're going for a galaxy spacey look here, so I think it's fine to make it a little bit shinier. Careful when you're mixing it up, you could knock it over, but luckily resin is thick enough you can pick it up before it spills everywhere like water would. This is a cool new thing that I've seen a lot of people use. I don't know if it's necessarily new, but it's new to me. As you pour resin into these little spouts, it makes dirty pours really, really cool and really easy. Often they keep the colors entirely separate, and so as you pour this out, you can get really defined colors and it will look like that blue, pink to white colors of the trans flag. I've been making a lot of dice molds out of PVC pipe lately, and so I have a ton of molds, which is why I was fine making so much resin, and I even have this extra 10d6 dice mold in case I made way too much that I can fill up and make a ton of dice out of this. You can see as I'm pouring it out of this spout here, it keeps very defined colors, and you can see blue to pink to white. That's exactly what I'm going for. So as I'm pouring this into the mold, I'm getting very hyped. I was like, wow, this idea is exactly what I wanted it to do. If you swirl it around here, you do kind of lose that individual streak, like a bit of color or ribbon going through the sky, which is what I was going for. So I don't swirl it much more. I just kind of pour it directly into the mold, move on to the next mold, pour it in pretty heavily. I made way too much, I think is the scientific term, as I pour this into the other molds. I even had to get out some of my older molds to be able to fill this in, but this is a really good shot showing the idea that I was going for. Black on the outside and then the blue, pink to white colors on the inside. Being that it kind of swirls around a lot, I thought that one set of blue, pink to white was enough to represent the flag rather than blue, pink, white, pink, blue. I popped the surface bubbles with a lighter going over the top of the resin as best I can. You can do that. It helps kind of avoid voids in your molds as you're making your dice, but I might not have done it enough on one of them, and I'll show you exactly why. But I go ahead and put the lids on all of the dice molds, squish it down so I get any excess resin out, put it in the pressure pot overnight for at least 24 hours, though I left mine in for 72 to really solidify. And hey, those are looking good, but what the hell? I start to pop all of the D6s out of their molds, and the pink is just gone. Admittedly, here on the close-up, you can kind of see that the pink is there, but it is completely faded if you're not looking at it with a 4K camera as close and zoomed in as you possibly can before the focus runs out. It is upsetting. I cut the flashing off the rest of them as I pull the rest of the dice out of the mold so I can get a better look at the set as a whole, and yeah, the pink is basically not there. So that's not what I had planned to happen at all. It's basically just normal galaxy dice at this point. Silver, blue, and black with kind of a hint of the pink. Okay, that's fine. I was wondering what color I was going to ink the numbers anyway, so now I'm just going to ink them pink. Fun to say, more fun to ink, and hopefully that will bring out the kind of pink colors within the dice themselves. I did end up getting a void on my D2, which stinks because I'm not going to remake all of the stuff just for a D2, and one of the large chunky D20s has a decently large size ridge, so oh well, I have plenty of backups. That's why we used a lot of molds. So let's get to sanding. I'm going to get a flat glass pane here. Hey, you can see the camera in the reflection. And I'm going to go ahead and cut up some squares of Zona papers. Interestingly, these all came out pretty darn good. I don't really need to sand them all that much, so I'm going to take this first grid of Zona paper and just simply not use it. Skip to the next one before I go down the rest of the steps. I definitely like to wet sand whenever I'm working with resin so that it's not getting as many particles up in the air, and it just makes a better sanding anyway. If you're not familiar with Zona papers, they're essentially just extremely fine grit sandpaper so we can get a glass-like polish on these things. And glass-like indeed, this might be one of my best polishing jobs ever. Here's a little secret, don't tell anybody else, just between me and you. I didn't polish the D6s. They look fine on their own to me. It's only the very edges that are even slightly rough, and the more you use them, that'll just kind of fix itself anyway. So I was pretty happy with them. I decided I wanted to use a wet palette for this. I didn't have a huge amount of time to get all of the inking done in one go, so I said, hey, I don't know if dice makers know about wet palettes like mini painters do. They're really cool. They keep your paints wet for a long time, and as long as you store them properly, you can pour some paint out and paint things like a month later and your paint will still be wet. I use it a lot when I do paint minis, but I do run into some problems here, and so I will show you some things to be aware of if you're a dice painter and don't normally do this. I get out some white and red paint. You could always use some pink contrast paint, but I thought it might make it too runny. I mix up my white and red paint on the wet palette here, and I'm going a little wild with my brush. I'm getting this paint all over the place as I'm trying to mix it in. I definitely should have used a bigger brush that could mix things a little bit faster, but I wasn't getting the color that I quite liked. It was a little too red, so I add some more white to it, and I go wild with the brush once again, and it is absolutely all over my wet palette. Experienced mini painters will know what the issue here that I'm about to face is. You can see this stuff looks like water, and it behaves just like water. This is way too thin down. I made it way too wide on the wet palette, and it kind of slowly leaks water up into your paint, and so I'm essentially putting pink water on these dice as I'm trying to ink them, and they are just not sticking at all as I do so. So I decide, all right, I'll pour it out, put it on my normal painting palette, and just let it sit for a little while. I let it sit for maybe 10-20 minutes, and it is still that wet. That's how bad I messed up. So I decided, all right, that's a wash. Let's just go ahead and remix up the paint here, and I'll thin it down with that pink water that I was using, and I get the consistency that I like. This is what you want, a kind of a milk-like consistency as you put it on. Still runny, but able to be wiped away with ease. If you leave it too thin when painting dice, as soon as you turn it over to another side, it'll just drip out the bottom. Now it's time to paint the logos. Of course, I'm going to use Goblin Green for the Goblin, but I got this cool new gold model color from Vallejo that I wanted to try for the actual gold bars that my Goblin is biting into, but you got to keep the Goblin that same kind of Goblin Green. No need to change that one up, but I really do like this gold. It's very shiny, got lots of sparkles in it, but truth be told, I don't know that there's many golds that I don't like. So I go ahead and ink up the logos on the D6s and the D20s for this set, and then they're basically complete. I'm pretty darn happy with how they look. There are just a few things that I'm not particularly fond of, and that's just the streaks of paint that are going across all of these dice from where I wiped it away. That's okay. That's a super easy to fix thing. I take a microfiber cloth, dip it in some isopropyl alcohol, and then just rub it over pretty briefly on each surface. I do this after the paint has dried for at least an hour, because if you try and do it any sooner than that, the alcohol may go down into the paint and cause the whole thing to just come up. So give it at least an hour before you do this, but it's a pretty easy cleanup on the rest of the sides, and it makes a huge difference in the overall appeal of the dice because they look shiny, they look new, there's no paint going everywhere. These are fantastic looking dice, and I'm darn proud of them. Hey, he said the pride word. That's a circular narrative right there, my friends. I think that these turned out really cool. I like the pink on the outside, and I actually like that the pink stands so much in contrast to the rest of the dice that are all shiny and galaxy. It makes the numbers stand out and are extremely readable from a distance, and you can see them at pretty much any angle. So I love them. I love how that they turned out. You can see there's tiny little bubbles in the paints, both green, gold, and pink. If that's an issue for you, you can just paint over it one more time and you won't see those bubbles at all. You won't see them at all normally anyway. You can only see them because I'm looking really close at a camera. If you're just playing with them at a table, you'll never see them. I like that I have two D20s, a chonk and a regular one, so that I can use it for advantage rolls. I have 12 D6s for all you whizzes who are trying to upcast your fireballs, and I like how they sound when I roll them. Hey, we might not have started strong with our test rolls, but we certainly finished strong with a crit. I'm pretty darn happy with how these turned out. I hope that you like them as well. Let me know if you would have inked them something different. I know that this kind of pastel pink does stand out quite opposed to the actual galaxy look that these turned out to be in the very end, but I like them. Let me know if you would have inked them something different. I definitely could have gone with like a neon pink, but I don't know. I think they're pretty darn cool. Now, I know they didn't turn out to where you could see all three of the flag colors at one time in this Pink Floyd ribbon of color through a dark galaxy night, like we had originally planned at the conception of this idea. But I still love them, even if they don't look like how we thought they were going to, because I think this is how they were always meant to be. Happy Pride, everyone.